interact with someone you've never seen before.
There. Nobody?
Or no?
I think we could, can everyone see?
Yeah.
All right. Yes, I'm gonna play some more videos. I don't like talking, I'm like, the internet has plenty to say. Anyone want to share?
We talked a little bit about how it's not for us, because we're white people, but we appreciate it, but know that we don't really have a stake in that conversation in the same way, I guess.
Okay, keep going. Anything else?
We touched on it a lot first.
If that's not how you spoke, Ash, I was not an English. And spell correct solves all the rest of the problems I have.
I would say that we both brought up the outrage. We but still to this day don't understand the outrage from the video and her Super Bowl performance.
We talked about it being empowering just as a woman from like just the female perspective. We also talked about that, you know, we're white, so it also is not for us. I'm not gonna lie and say I understand everything in the video and all the nuances because I don't, because I haven't had that experience. And then we also talked about, you know, just reading a lot of the articles online that came from like feminist blogs, and is Beyonce just capitalizing on feminism? Is she just capitalizing on the Black Lives Matter movement, these kind of critiques that people have had? I don't know if I agree with that or not, but it's an interesting conversation, I guess.
Anything else?
Yeah, so my initial reaction to it wasn't so much, it was really about what an important statement it is about the need to, about what we're gonna lose through gentrification in New Orleans. And it was a beautiful, passionate love letter to Black culture in New Orleans and everything that it has to offer, and what will be lost if gentrification will continue to gobble that city alive.
We talked about the outrage a little bit back here, and I mean, I think that and we talked about how it took guts for her to, amidst like all her corporate ties and sponsorships, to stand up on maybe like the largest stage that a performer is on in this generation, the Super Bowl, which is also super corporatized. And maybe that's why there's such an outrage, like, because the people who have big money are used to maybe, you know, Beyonce just dance and sing the songs that we want you to sing. And then one last thing, I don't know, I understand maybe what we're saying is not for white people, but I think it's scary or a little bit dangerous to say that a certain kind of art isn't for any group of people, because just because I may not understand what is occurring from my experience, I don't think that that should stop me from taking in what is occurring and try to get some type of a point of reference or understanding. I know that growing up, a lot of the music that I listened to was not written from the experience that I was living, and but it greatly impacted my perception of the world. So, or whatever that's worth.
Yeah, that's some really, oh yeah, go ahead.
Sorry. And to add to that, we also came with it from a different perspective. A lot of people don't get to realize that even though she is a corporate machine, she is also a person, a human being, and a parent. So as a parent, making this video and it being empowering for women, really, you know, showcasing that pride piece, because she does talk a lot about herself and her experience, you know. And a lot of people do forget that she is human, that she does have an experience and wanting to pass that down to her child. And then how uncomfortable it is for people to watch the Super Bowl and then have to explain that to their children. That was a lot of the critique. You know, this wasn't appropriate for this stage. But at what point will it be appropriate, you know, for a stage like that? You know, you see a whole lot of things on the news, and at some point, as parents, you have to explain things to your children because they're growing up and they're trying to understand the world around them. So I'm thinking, you know, as we were talking back here, that's a perspective that a lot of people forgot to, I guess, examine. Because again, she's got a 4-year-old, so now it's like, you know, she's gonna be going to kindergarten at some point, maybe, and there's gonna be questions that she may ask.
Yeah, this is really great feedback. This is why I love being in this particular role, because I get to hear. So it's interesting to look at all of these critiques, because to say that I read an endless amount of people's critiques would be disrespectful to the word endless, because it was even more than that. Because it evoked a lot of emotion for everyone, because it should have. It should have made white people feel uncomfortable. It should have empowered white and black women, because in there was something for everyone. A white person from New Orleans could feel empowered by that video because it's their city. They're reflecting on things that happened in that space. For any person that may have had or been put in a space of examining police brutality across cultures, there was a message embedded in there too. And it speaks to why context matters. Because it matters that she's a woman of color. And it matters that in a situation where she made a statement about her experience, her observations, it offended people. And it offended people who previously liked her a lot. Like the agency had a break off because they're like, whoa, we thought you were for us. And they forgot that her context never stopped existing. Yes?
Yeah, I feel you going up to a lot of people because they were in Louisiana. They're not Creoles and nothing. There was a bunch of slaves in Louisiana too that were Creole and nothing. And yes, I mean white and slavery. So I don't agree with what you just said.
What part of what I just said?
You said a bunch of you said a person from Louisiana could identify with what you said. And it's not true because a lot of people are from Louisiana that cannot identify with nothing in Louisiana.
Yeah, no, I agree. The statement that I was attempting to make in that is that there isn't a specific person that it applies to, because it depends on the perspective of the person. So I could be a white person who lived in a part of Louisiana that got flooded, and that video might be significant to me because I remember my house being flooded and me having nowhere to go, because that is the experience of some people there. But if you're not from there, and if that's not your experience, it's hard to see that message there, which is why where the perspective of people and where people are coming from is really important. That was what I was saying, not that everyone understands everyone's experience, because I certainly don't believe that. And it brings up a good point of having this conversation with my partner, who did not understand. He thought the video was cool. My partner is white. He was like, oh, it's a beautiful video. Like artistically, it looks beautiful. I don't understand the outrage. I also don't understand why people are losing their mind over it in excitement, because I just had all the moments on him, because I'm like, you're gonna listen to everything that I'm like, this video is amazing, gush, gush, gush. I'm pretty sure he ended up with like 5 pages of just me just gushing about the video that he couldn't understand. And he said, I actually don't understand what you're saying to me, because I don't have your lens. This is not my experience. I'm a man. I'm a white man from Grand Haven. I don't understand any I understand you enough to understand that you're just gonna be empowered by a lot of things that talk about women's issues, so do you, babe? But I don't get it. And that's when I gave him 5 articles written by other people. 4 of them were written by women of color. 1 of them was written by a white woman. Because, and the reason I mention this is because when you're talking about building context for feminist-based conversations, it matters the perspectives of the people that are reflecting on things. and having a balance. And in that situation, the balance needed to lean towards women of color, reflecting on why it's an empowering video or what they were seeing. He read 5 different perspectives of women. He did not get a male perspective because this video was not for men. That I will say unilaterally. It was not for men, but it benefited men. Especially when you talk about the queer identity and all of the identity pieces that come along with the ways we box in women. So it matters for men in that it's a discussion about the way we box people in general. Her motherhood. How can we drag her as a mother and forget about the way she put her child in the video and the way she celebrated her own child and the way she chose to represent her child? Her child was fully clothed. And that's not to say that there's anything wrong with being half-dressed or naked. But that was important. But that's an observation that's missed because we'll look at what this mother is wearing. Look at what she's wearing. Exactly what she wants to. And that was part of the message. And so all of that matters, and so then send all those pieces, he reads them, and he's like, wow, I get it. Because it wasn't enough coming from me. Because emotionally, he doesn't want to offend me. And so he's always going to be like, I don't get it, but I respect you. And that's our space, and that's cool. But sometimes stepping outside of even your own context and bringing in the perspectives of other people aids in that conversation, because it's always difficult because we were not trained to regularly have these conversations. So I'm going to show another video. I can tell you already an hour is really difficult for me in talking about issues of race, and then you put in women, and I'm just like, we need like a lifetime to just excavate. But I show that video because the assumption is, and this is an assumption for people across the board in watching Formation, that Black women agreed on what Formation meant to them. Or that Black women agree on what Beyonce is to feminism, and that is not the case. And the context behind all of this is that white women don't agree on what feminism is amongst themselves either, but neither do women of color, and it breaks down based on cultural experience. But then you also have to consider all of the other lenses that are then put into place for the individual. Am I a Black female Christian that is a feminist? Do I come from a space that is extremely conservative? And those are certainly things that are true for me. I came from a really conservative Black town, which Saginaw is not known to be that, but Saginaw is Southern Christian migrants. And they carry with that the culturation that results, which is respectability politics is huge. So for me, becoming a feminist didn't happen until I was removed from that space. Because I didn't know what it meant to be sexually empowered. Like, sexual empowerment was actually like the devil's workshop. But no one thinks about the ways those lenses impact the individual. I can't point at you and assume the way feminism affects you. And I can't do that for you. 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 Feminism affects men. Feminism affects women. Feminism affects the way a man raises his children, or doesn't. It affects the way women raise their children, or the way they don't. My dad had 5 girls, and this is what he got, a bunch of fiery feminists. He didn't know. He didn't know what he was doing. All he knew is he ended up with 5 girls, and in this world they got to figure out how to take care of themselves because they're Black. Our female identity was actually super irrelevant to him, other than you better not get pregnant by no man, and if you do, you better not do them. And those are things that affects me. And those are things I have to deconstruct in my feminine identity, and that's my context. And those are the things that I bring to the table of conversation. So what I want you guys to do is I want you to partner with someone else that you haven't talked to yet and discuss moments where you felt your feminism was limited. And I want you to name what it was limited by, and I want you to talk about how it made you feel. And if you think you've never existed in a feminist space, I'll make it even simpler. Think of moments where being a woman was a liability. How it made you feel, what that situation was, and kind of discuss it. And for people that identify as male in the room, think of situations where you felt like being a male was a liability to a